let's give Sienna a round of applause.
They made headlines. You've read about them in books. You've seen them in films. They are the Mafia. Same story, different versions, one truth. They are an organized crime group, usually called families, working in many parts of the world that was created in Italy more than 200 years ago. This is according to the Wikipedia website retrieved on March 30, 2008. Well, the Mafia affects you more than you think you do. They cost taxpayers billions of dollars each year. Their illegal rackets take money away from state-approved and taxed businesses. And they sell drugs, among other things, contributing to a violent society. This is according to the Boston Globe on April 1, 1990. Let us then trace the history, or in Italian, la storia, of the Mafia. It begins with a romantic myth in Sicily, Italy. That's the island right there. An island always invaded by foreigners such as the Greeks. Pessimism and cynicism became the two prevailing attitudes among the locals who are always under constant foreign rule. There is even an old Sicilian proverb from the book Mafia, published in 1993, that says, "The law is for the rich, the gallows for the poor, and justice is for fools." So then secret bandit brotherhoods began to form, and they remained as the invaders came and went by. Technically, they were outside the law, but the locals came seeing them as the law. They were comprised of the gabilan. They were the middlemen hired by the landlords and aristocrats to protect their property. Some were good to the locals, but others started trends of crime, especially extortion. And they had the campieri, their henchmen, to do their bidding. They were called men of respect, even though they didn't deserve to be respected. They just demanded respect from each and everyone. This is a title to be taken by the mafioso, and the campieri merged to form the early mafia. Now that the mafia is formed, several events led to their zenith and growth. The Italian diaspora. After the year 1870, Sicilians and Italians in general came to the United States to flee from poverty. And some of them brought their criminality with them, and they began to form criminal societies in New Orleans and New York City. And these crime groups fused into one, the Camorra, the Calabria, the Ndrangheta, into the Mafia. Prohibition. Basically, from years 1920 to 1933, you weren't allowed to have any form of alcoholic beverage except for medicinal purposes. This became a catalyst to the Mafia, who began bootlegging to the liquor-thirsty public. This is a picture of them bootlegging kegs upon kegs of illegal alcohol from ClanLibrary.com, retrieved on March 30, 2008. World War II strengthened the group. It forged a U.S. Mafia alliance. The U.S. government began making connections with the mob so that they can target Italy. And one of the people they had was Charlie Lucky Luciano, a mob boss who was very important to U.S. military intelligence. Now we are in an era where the Mafia is in decline. It has been called the Declino del Padrino, or the decline of the Godfather. This is according to the La Repubblica, an Italian newspaper. And they basically say that several factors are bringing about the decline of American Mafia. It is from the book An Offer We Can't Refuse, The Mafia in the Mind of America by George DeStefano, published in 2006. One of these factors is law enforcement. There is a law called RICO, which stands for Racketeer Influence in Corrupt Organizations, that was enacted in the year 1961 and penalizes criminal acts performed as part of a criminal organization. According to Organized Crime by Howard Obadinsky, 4th edition, published in 1994, RICO has clearly become the most important piece of legislation ever enacted against organized crime. Some say it was made just for the Mafia. But if the United States Supreme Court doesn't catch you in the act, then the IRS will, thanks to the Internal Revenue Code. The mob does everything not to pay taxes. They set up fronts, they have offshore accounts in the Bahamas, and what they do is that the IRS prosecutes them for the evasion of taxes. Like what they did to Al Capone in the case of U.S. versus Sullivan. He wasn't prosecuted for the thousands of murders he committed, but he was placed behind bars for not filing the proper tax. Omerta is the code of silence and secrecy, followed by the code of the Mafia. Yet, a member named Joseph Balakay broke it very, very bad. He killed his prisoner, thinking that the Mafia sent him to kill him. So in his paranoia, he began to testify against the mob in exchange for a lenient punishment, solitary confinement, and basic protection. It was all documented on TV and the book The Villaki Papers, written by Peter Maas on year 1968. He said that the American Mafia was called La Cosa Nostra, which means this thing of ours, and he pinpointed the members of the Mafia. And the people themselves are defying the mob. According to the December 8, 2000 issue of the U.S. Economist, a small but growing number of businessmen is defying the mob. And the Italian government is supporting them by giving them tax breaks if they don't pay protection money. Even though the Mafia is declining, they're still having an impact on us. Or in Italian, un continuando impatto. Pop culture? More like bang culture. We are a people hungry for stories about the mob, as evidenced by the success of the Godfather trilogy, a film about the Corleone crime family, and The Sopranos, an HBO series about Tony Soprano and his family. Still, there are signs of resurgence. Just 6 days ago, on March 28, there were 3 violent and suspected Mafia killings in southern Italy, causing the government to send police reinforcement in the area. This is from the CNN.com website. And there's a rise in Mafia activity in Italy. Racket and dynamite attacks rose by 11%, according to a Mafia Italy news update website. This is the history, decline, and impact of the Mafia. Capiche?
Yeah.